Hi there, it's Dr. Saira, and it's the end of the month for our first Ask Dr. Saira series. Thank you so much for tuning in every week, and if you've missed any episodes, make sure you go back. Today's actually the recap episode, so you will really enjoy this. It's a little bit longer than the other ones, but we are going to get through it. Basically, what I'm going to do today is there's been a bunch of questions coming in all through the month, and we are going to recap the last 3 questions that we've had and go a little bit deeper so that you can get your a little bit more meat for the questions that you had this month. So let's start with the first question. So the first question we had was about positivity and how do we stay positive in the midst of, you know, our own kind of maybe negative beliefs. And somebody wrote in, Fatima wrote in that she used to be really positive and then she's just not able to muster that same positivity. How can she keep that optimism? So that was the first question. Second question was from Sayed, and he talked about this thing about presence and wanting to stay present and wanting to know how to be present, but feeling like in this rush world, how do you do that? And then the third question was from Serena, who was exhausted because she was just always being nice. And, you know, she talked about how she comes from a culture where family is really important, and she often put her needs last at the expense of the family's needs. So those were the 3 questions that came in this month. And what I wanted to do with you today is to talk a little bit more from a transpersonal perspective and go a little bit deeper with these questions. So if we look at, from an energy perspective, which part of the chakra system, the energy centers in the body, are those questions coming from? Here's how it goes. The question about presence, the second question, is actually the root chakra, which is kind of the tailbone of the body. And that's the part of us that knows about grounding and steadiness and being connected. Okay, so that's where that question comes from. So if we go a deeper dive with that question, what I would say is for that presence is to start to find ways to activate your root chakra. Now, what does that even mean? Activate your root chakra. Sounds pretty woo-woo. Okay, let me break it down. A chakra is basically an energy center in the body, okay? And when that energy center is flowing and things are going well, then we have no disruption, we don't have physical pain, we don't have emotional pain, things are going well. But when there's some sort of a blockage, then things start going off balance. And so you know that your root chakra is off balance if you're having a hard time with presence. You also know your root chakra is off balance if you're having a hard time with money, okay, or with physical health. And so one of the ways to get your root chakra back into balance is very, very simple: going for a walk in nature, being outside, sitting on the grass, and just like being in nature. And that would be a great solution for the person, for Sayed, who was talking about presence and how he's having difficulty with presence and how does he build more presence into his world. And I gave a bunch of suggestions in the last video, but for this one, in the last video with that question, but for this one, it's about, okay, Sayed, from an energy perspective, if you want to bring more presence into your life, if you want to open your capacity to receive presence, there's actually an exercise that you can do. It's kind of funny looking, but I'm going to demonstrate, okay? I don't know if I can. I might go too high. So, okay, you're going to squat. You're going to actually squat and squat like that. Kind of like you're doing a poo in the field. That squatting and that kind of sitting with your legs open, it just opens up the whole energy center of the root chakra. You can also sit on the floor more often, just at home instead of sitting on a chair, sit down on the earth. That'll start opening that chakra. So that's for the presence question. For the question about optimism and happiness, so that has to do with the heart, and well, 2 places. So there's the solar plexus chakra is where we hold all our kind of heavy negative emotions. So fear, worry, anxiety, pessimism, guilt. So for the other 2 questions, they both had to do with feelings, right? So the nice, wanting to be nice and feeling guilty if I wasn't nice. And then the other question was about wanting to be more positive. And so those have to do with these 2 chakras here, which is the solar plexus and the heart. So the heart is about expressing love and connection and unconditional acceptance and love. And then the solar plexus is where all those other feelings go that are not those higher level emotions. And so if you're having trouble in your solar plexus, you might feel kind of low self-esteem, you might feel not so good about yourself, you might feel like you're not very effective in the world. And so how do we get our solar plexus back into balance? Well, this is where things like affirmations really work well. So you might have heard of Louise Hay, right? Check it out, Hay House, and her whole, she has a whole publishing house. And she has a book called Heal Your Body, Heal Your Life. And in that book, she talks about different physical illnesses that we have in the body and how those are related to emotional and psychological stories that we have. And so if you're having trouble with guilt or pessimism, then you want to look at what are some of those original stories that you had about yourself. So it could be, I'm no fun. I'm sick. Like life is hard for me because I'm sick all the time, or I'm so lonely, or whatever those stories are that you have that are negative stories. You want to start journaling those stories. Okay, so you can make a list, or you can write down in your journal like I'm this, I'm that, I'm that, and the purpose for that is to kind of like dump it out of your system, because if you don't express it, it just festers and festers and festers and like creates disease in your body. So you're going to dump it first. Once you've dumped it, then you're going to once you've got it out of your body, then you're saying, okay, now that I've written it down, I'm letting it go, and you let it go. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You could, if it's in a journal, you might like tear that page of the journal out and like put it in some water in a river. You might, one of my teachers says, you pour honey all over it to like sweeten it, whatever you want to do to kind of like let it go. You're not going to keep that in your journal so you can reread it. That's not the point. You're writing it down so you can let it go. Then you're going to write your story about the new thing you want. So if you want more positivity, or you want more, that feeling of, what's the opposite of guilt? I don't know, like you're feeling good, or you're feeling free maybe. If you want to feel freedom, or you want to feel positivity, then you're going to write, I believe I can feel free. I believe I will feel positive in the future. And you just keep writing those types of things down. And it's kind of like a one sitting exercise. The other thing you can do is you could just imagine your solar plexus just growing and like healing. Like you don't even have to know what that means, but you can just imagine that the energy is just expanding in your solar plexus and expanding in your heart, and just trust that healing is happening. When I do energy healing for people, it can seem kind of strange, right? Because it's a non-physical healing. And therapy is a non-physical healing. We're just talking and people are feeling better. How's that possible? And so a big part of this healing work and this personal development work is what we call trusting the process. And that means, trying new things and then testing for yourself. How does that work? How does that sit with you? Without putting up like barriers, like, oh, that's not going to work, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. Just being willing to try something new. And so when we do these monthly recaps, I'm gonna offer you something kind of a little off the beaten track of therapy, where you can try something new. So imagine those chakras expanding with the solar plexus. Doing the dump that you need to do, and then to activate the heart chakra. The other thing that's very simple to do to activate the heart chakra is be around babies or little animals. Even just looking at pictures of like kittens or puppies, like it just activates the love and that unconditional loving feeling inside of you. So that's another idea that you could use to go a little bit deeper and start doing the deeper work on opening up those chakras. So thank you so much to Fatima, to Sayed, and to Serena for your questions this month. If you have a question that you want me to talk about in next month's Ask Dr. Saira series, leave a comment down below, or send me an email at connect@talktosaira.com. And I'm also on Facebook. Check out my Dr. Saira page there. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel to find out when new episodes are being released. And it's your life, and only you can live it. Take care.